everybody, welcome to Crack Pack Tuesday number 191 on the Mana Leek. I'm John as always, and we've got Teferi here for another pack of War of the Spark. We're going to crack this pack open, see what's in it, and we're going to talk about what we would take pack one, pick one, if this was a draft. Now, every Crack Pack is sponsored by you over at patreon.com/themanaleak. If you are a $5 backer or above, you're entered each week to get all the cards out of this pack, or some of the cards, none of the cards, whatever you happen to want. Some packs aren't that great, some are fantastic. This week, it's going to R2, so R2 can let me know what they want. But we're going to crack this open and see what we would take pack one, pick one. If this was a draft, last week's fell apart. This one was harder to open, holy moly. Up first, we've got ourselves a Goblin Assailant, a 1 and a red creature Goblin Warrior. It's a 2/2 with flavor text. Nope, this set is very powerful, and this card, well, way back when would have been a totally solid, fine, not first pick, but include in your deck, is not really good enough. Loxodon Sergeant is up next. Loxodon Sergeant is 3 and a white for a 3/3 creature elephant soldier. It's got vigilance, and when it ETBs, everything else gets vigilance too. No, 4 mana 3/3 vigilance isn't really doing it for me. Giving my team vigilance isn't really doing it for me. It's a fine creature if you have a spot, I guess, but it's not a first pick. Kasmina's Transmutation is an interesting card. 1 and a blue for an enchantment or an enchant creature. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and becomes, doesn't become anything, and has base power and toughness 1/1. There's been a lot of talk about this card because this doesn't hit armies, despite the fact that it's hitting an Eternal in there. If you cast this on a 4/4 army, all that happens is that 4/4 army becomes a 5/5 army. So people have been down on this and said, oh, it's a bad card, you shouldn't play it. And it reminds me a lot of Dragons of Tarkir, where we had pacifism. You all know pacifism. And we had an ability called Exploit, which was when the creature ETBs, you could sack another creature you control to get some sort of extra benefit. And people said, oh, pacifism bad, because they can just use their exploit creatures on your pacifism creature. And then what did you do? Well, you still got rid of a creature. You still forced them to sacrifice a creature that they probably wouldn't have to exploit. So yes, pacifism was not quite as good as it usually was in Dragons of Tarkir, but it was still fine. And Kasmina's Transmutation is very similar, yes. It doesn't hit armies. It doesn't hit proliferate creatures very well, but it hits everything else. You don't have to cast this on an army. You don't have to cast this on a proliferate creature. And if you do cast this on something like a god, you feel amazing, because it actually is one of the easiest, cheapest, and best ways to flat out eliminate any of the gods, and you're going to see gods in this set for sure. Beyond that, you can use this even on something like a Law Rune Enforcer, and removing that tap ability is a huge play. I still like to play the first copy of these in my decks. The rest can sit in the sideboard, and you should definitely be prepared to sideboard it out. But this card is still good. Don't let people convince you otherwise just because some situations using it in some ways is bad. The rest of the ways are still good. It's our first pick for right now. It probably won't stay there, but it's our first pick for right now. Goblin Assault Team is up next. Goblin Assault Team is 3 and a red for a creature Goblin Warrior. It's a 4/4 with haste, and when it dies, you put a counter on something. Not a huge fan of this. Red is not exactly the counter deck. It's not super looking for that, but it wouldn't say no to a counter. The 4/1 haste is kind of cool because sometimes you'll get in for 4. Sometimes this just kills your opponent's weakest creature. It's a 4 mana edict in red, which I'm not terribly excited for either. So, I'm not interested in this really. I'll include it if I have a spot, if I'm super aggressive, but I'm never first picking it. Up next is Vampire Opportunist. Vampire Opportunist is 1 and a black for a creature vampire. It's a 6, and you can pay 6 and a black. Each opponent loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. It's not very good. That's a lot of mana that you got to put in. It's just a 2/1 for 2 until you're at 7 mana, or I guess 14 mana if you want to double activate it. Not a first pick, and not even terribly often that much of an include. Up next is Steady Aim. Why, I remember this print run from last week. Steady Aim is 1 and a green for an instant untapped target creature. It gets +1/+4 and gains reach until end of turn. It's the worst way that you can sideboard in a card to deal with a flyer. You could side in a spider. You could side in a forced landing. This, you have to have an exactly perfect scenario with the exactly perfect creature in order to actually deal with a flyer. Not a fan of it. Never, ever, ever main deck it, and preferably don't even sideboard it. Get better options. Up next is Band Together. Goodbye, Casmina's Transmutation. Band Together is 2 and a green for an instant. Up to 2 target creatures you control deal their combined damage to a creature an opponent controls. This card's amazing. It's the best green removal that we've had in a while. It's just so good. It's instant speed. It has the normal green removal problem of you need to have the relevant creatures there, but if you do, this card's just great. I would first pick this card. I wouldn't feel bad about first picking this card, and we're going to keep it in frame until we see something else. Up next is Gateway Plaza. Gateway Plaza is a land gate. It comes into play tapped. You must pay 1 generic mana or else sacrifice it when it comes into play, but then you can tap it for any color. If you are splashing, you want one of these. This is probably, in my opinion, the best way that you could splash in this format because it doesn't technically cost you mana, and it produces mana right away, and it's way harder to hit than killing an artifact, etc. Still, it's never, ever, ever a first pick, and if you're a 2-color deck, you don't play this at all. Up next is Trusted Pegasus. Well, this is another potential first pick. 2 and a white for a creature Pegasus. It's a 2/2 flyer, and when it attacks, another attacking creature gets flying as well. This is a great card. I can't believe that they switched it from uncommon back down to common. It's really, really, really good. It's going to get your creatures through to the face. It's going to get your creatures through to the planeswalkers. A blue-white deck that has a few of these can rapidly end the game. I'm talking like turn 5, turn 6, end the game. Very, very good card. Definitely a potential first pick along with Band Together. Arlen's Wolf is up next. Arlen's Wolf is 2 and a green for a creature wolf. It's a 3/2. Trying to figure out where the glare doesn't exist on this camera. There we go. Let's pretend it's there. It's a 3/2 that cannot be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. This card's great. It can't be chump blocked. It's in green, which means you can maybe be getting some counters on this and proliferating, and then it's even bigger and can't be chump blocked. And of course, maybe you have Arlen, and it's even better because it perhaps enters with a counter. Arlen's Wolf is great. I would actually not hate first picking it in the weakest of packs, but I would still first pick Band Together or Trusted Pegasus over the Wolf. But this card's great. Don't ever avoid picking or playing this card. Our uncommon, so 5 and 5, yeah, no foil this pack, is Dreadmalkin. Dreadmalkin's a single black mana for a creature zombie cat. It's a 1/1 with Menace. You can pay 2 and a black and sacrifice another creature or planeswalker to put 2 +1/+1 counters on Dreadmalkin. As I said in my set review, there's way too much work put into this. It's way too easy to just get blown out by sacking a bunch of things, putting a bunch of counters on this, and then your opponent bounces this, or they kill it. And not only have you put in, 4, 7, 10 mana into this, you've also put in multiple creatures and planeswalkers into it. And then your opponent just ruins those plans. I never want to play Dreadmalkin. I think I've played it once or twice, and it was very mediocre, and I've played against it a few times, and I've just utterly blown out my opponent. Not a fan of Dreadmalkin. Not a first pick. Not even a play. Up next is Dovin's Veto. Dovin's Veto is white-blue for an instant. This spell can't be countered. Counter target non-creature spell. I would play this all the time in Sealed, because there are so many planeswalkers. There's going to be, potentially 6 on your opponent's side at a bare minimum. And this gets the planeswalkers. But I'm not going to play this in draft. Most decks in draft have like 2-ish planeswalkers maybe. And there's just not enough other stuff for you to look to hit with a harder to cast negate. This is basically negate through and through and through, and I'm not interested in playing it. Our final uncommon, happens to be Arlen. Arlen is 4 green for a legendary planeswalker Arlen. She starts with a whopping 7 loyalty. Each creature you control that's a wolf or werewolf, there are no werewolves in this set, enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. -2, you make a 2/2 wolf, except she's on the battlefield, so you actually make a 3/3 wolf. Arlen's fantastic and a strong first pick, and in fact, I think is just going to be the first pick for right now. She is great. I have played her in proliferate decks where she is even better, because not only does she potentially get extra wolf activations, but her wolves that have counters become 4/4s and 5/5s, and it can get real nutty. Arlen is fantastic. One of the best green planeswalkers, and possibly our first pick here, because our rare is Parhelion 2. Parhelion 2 is 6 white. For a legendary artifact vehicle, it's a 5/5 when you crew it, which you have to pay 4. It's got flying, first strike, and vigilance, and when it attacks, it makes 2 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance that are also attacking. So this attacks like a 14/14 flying vigilance, 5 of it first strike. This is insane on the battlefield. You have to get it on the battlefield. You're frequently not getting it on the battlefield, and that's why I would not be taking Parhelion 2 here. I would be taking Arlen over Parhelion 2. I might even take Trusted Pegasus or Band Together over Parhelion 2, because I just don't want my game plan to be guaranteeing that I'm getting to turn 8 or later. Yes, this is a slower format, but it's not necessarily that slow. So I am out on Parhelion 2. I've seen way too many people die with it in their hands, just not able to get to that mana, and Arlen just looks a lot better to me. She's not that much cheaper, but 2 mana is a whole lot cheaper. So Parhelion 2 is not going to be the pick for me. I am going to go with Arlen, and we've got our zombie army there. So let me know what you would have taken in the comments below. Would you have taken Arlen, Parhelion 2? I guess Trusted Pegasus and Band Together are in there. Maybe you want to try to convince me on Arlen's Wolf, but good luck. Or not Arlen's Wolf, sorry. Arlen's Wolf is great. Maybe you want to convince me on Dreadmelkin, but good luck. As always, you can, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can always find me over on Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter. If you want to become a backer, you can go to patreon.com/themanaleak. Like I said, at the $5 level or above, like R2, you can get your chance to get all the cards from the pack each week, or none of the cards, some of the cards, whatever you happen to want. If you do want to go over to inkedgaming.com and use the promo code MANALEAK10, that would be awesome and super help out the channel. You can get yourself a playmat like this one here. They also have dice bags and sleeves and board games and board game accessories, etc. But if you do have questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you all next time.